Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Breakthrough the Weight Loss Plateau Summit. I am Allene Arnold, your host, and I am here today with Dr. Elizabeth Rodgers. She's a chronic health expert, an epidemiologist, and a medical intuitive. So, Elizabeth, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and who you help?
I would love to. So it is absolutely an honor to be here and connecting with you and this beautiful audience. So I'll tell you just a brief little bit about what I do because I know we'll probably talk about it even more in depth because I know what the title of our talk is today. So I'm a Harvard trained epidemiologist and chronic health expert, and as a researcher for years, I studied the root causes of health issues. But after spending over 15 years in the Western healthcare system, I became very disappointed in how often it fails patients. So now in my private practice, I work one on one with clients who are tired of being told they can only manage symptoms or who are just stuck in a chronic cycle of feeling unwell, whether that's with physical symptoms or just not feeling their best, which I think a lot of us can relate to, and who want to create lives that are powerful, healthy, and free. And I help women identify the root causes of their issues and create roadmaps to heal so they can finally look and feel their best at any age.
I love that. Especially like talking into like going to doctors and a lot of women because we're women and unfortunately like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women were not studied when they do studies about symptoms and all that. They mostly studied men.
Yep.
Um, a lot of women are frustrated because they can't get the help that they need and they're just given pills to cover up symptoms and it's like you're not actually getting to the problem.
No.
So, since we are talking about root cause healing, can you tell us a little bit about what you mean by root cause healing and how you kind of get to the bottom of that root cause?
Absolutely. And this is connected to what we were just talking about, but how it seems like everyone is living with at least one health issue or are stuck living in less than optimal health, but doctors are more interested in managing symptoms than actually healing the problem. So, like I was saying, what I do is help women identify the root causes of their health issues and create roadmaps to heal so they can finally look and feel their best at any age. But what exactly is that? Like, let's get into that a little bit. So, I love what I do, and it's always important to me to integrate science as well. So, despite having the world's richest healthcare system, the United States has one of the unhealthiest populations. In 2021, the Commonwealth Fund published the results of a study which found that despite spending far more of its GDP on healthcare, the United States actually ranked worst on healthcare outcomes compared with all of the other countries in the study. So, the real problem, part of the real problem, is that doctors aren't actually trained to heal. They're trained to manage symptoms. And I know because when I was a researcher at the University of Pittsburgh Medical School, I interviewed people for hours evaluating all aspects of their health and well being. And I listened to countless stories told through tears about the disappointing experiences people were having at doctors' offices. And they weren't getting the answers they needed. And now I hear those same stories every day in my practice from people who are new coming in. So, getting diagnosed and being healed are two different things. So, of course, to be clear, I always want to say that, of course, doctors and prescriptions, I'm not here saying that you should not use them. They can and should be utilized, but if and when it is appropriate, right? Not everyone wants to merely manage themselves. Some people want to take personal responsibility for their health and well being so they can learn how to create whatever their definition of optimal health is, right? Because it can be different for every one of us. So there's no excuse for a healthcare system that only manages pain and doesn't help people heal. I really feel that that's unacceptable. And so I'm here to do things different in my practice. And I hope that through that, we can see at some point people like me going and training the Western system to integrate these types of approaches into it. So, because of this experience and this knowledge, this is why I left the system to do something different, to pioneer a new approach to the way we heal. And that brings us to root cause healing. So, what exactly is that? Well, root cause healing means identifying what is really creating and contributing to any chronic problem, whether it's symptoms, health issues, unwanted weight gain, whatever it is that people are experiencing, so that we can create a plan to minimize or eliminate those things. So, for example, and I feel like a lot of women listening will relate to this because, like we were talking about, women unfortunately seem to bear the brunt of these problems and issues a lot. I could tell you some crazy stories, which, if we have time, we can get into. For example, inflammation is not a cause, it's an effect. So there are several different factors that create that inflammation. It's my job to figure that out. And spoiler alert, it's never just toxins and pathogens that are standing in your way. That's actually one side of the healing equation. And so this is where I get into even more about root cause healing and what I do differently. So root cause healing that actually leads to optimal health and well-being that lasts means looking at both sides of the healing equation. So there is a physical side and there is a non-physical, or you can call it energetic, side to the equation. When you look at the problem by addressing both sides, you can help people finally look and feel their best. So when we talk about root causes, there are always more than one, and often the biggest barriers are actually your blind spots. They're not things like toxins and pathogens, which are inevitably part of the problem, but the truth is that's just because you're a human living on planet Earth. But often those biggest barriers are your blind spots. There are things standing in your way that have to do with what's inside of you. And the reason is because everything starts as energy, right? So the truth is, how are you, a physical 3D being sitting here listening to this today? You're actually made up of energy. Protons, neutrons, and electrons are what hold you together. You are energy. So before any problem can manifest in your life physically, it has to exist energetically first. And so when I personally am talking about root cause healing, what I'm talking about is, what are all of the things that are contributing to why you're stuck in a plateau, or you're just stuck in a chronic cycle of feeling unwell, whatever that means, whether it's with diagnoses, you're just tired all the time, you just don't feel your best, and you're not quite sure how to define it, and no doctor is able to necessarily, based on traditional testing either, right? And when it comes to the energy, it has also to do with who and how we're being, right? Because the truth is that our identity is what drives things like our behaviors and our habits and our actions. So a lot of research will show, right? For example, I used to work on, during my research career, I worked for a while on a lot of different types of weight loss studies that were implementing different types of more holistic and natural approaches, because I always am all about, non-pharmacological approaches. I know our bodies were made to heal. And so if we use natural approaches to do that, what can happen when we give people those kinds of tools? And we always found in those studies, and if you go look now, you can Google it yourself and find that any research study, for the most part, that looks at those types of interventions, or any intervention around behavioral change, will show you that people do well when they're doing the study. But then all of a sudden, after the program ends or the study ends or whatever it is they're doing, they go back to their old habits. So why is that? That's because it all comes back to energy. It all comes back to how you're thinking too. So if you think about it at the physical level, there are different levels of energy, right? And your physical body is actually the slowest form of energy. And we as human beings, especially because of the way our Western healthcare system has trained us to think, we tend to stay focused on that physical part, right? But actually, That's just not all there is to it. So there's sound and light. Those are two other levels of energy. But what we tend to forget about a lot is thought. And thought is actually the fastest form of energy. And energy follows thought. So if we're used to hearing things from doctors like, well, you're just going to have to manage it, you're just going to have to manage it.
Mhm.
The thing is, not only are your ears listening, but so are the cells in your body.
Mhm.
Because sound, through our spoken word, also has its own frequency, vibration, and energy. And your body absorbs that frequency and energy. Your cells are actually quite literally listening and they're responding accordingly. So it's not just what you're thinking and telling yourself about your belief, about your ability to be healthy and have the health and well being you desire. You're also getting signals and messages from the people around you that could be your partner, which is why, again, there are different categories of root causes, bringing this back to root cause healing.
Mhm.
And only one of those categories is physical, meaning toxins, pathogens, triggers in the environment like mold, things like that. But relationships can actually be a root cause. Do you have people around you that reinforce health and well being, or are they kind of Debbie Downers and they're constantly making you feel like you might as well just go take a pill and throw in the towel? Or maybe you've heard things like, well, this is just in our genes, this is how our family is. It doesn't have to necessarily be that way. And I can tell you, as an epidemiologist, that genetics don't necessarily guarantee that you are going to have any specific health outcome. They may change your risk. It's not a guarantee. You get to decide. You get to decide. So, relationships around you could be a root cause. There could be things energetically, there could be things related to your thoughts, there could be things related to your habits or your attitudes. So, there's this wide range of things that I talk about when it comes to root cause healing.
Yeah, and I think I have also experienced stuff like I've had thyroid issues, and it runs in my family, which, you know, obviously that means you're more predisposed to it, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that it'll happen because my brother doesn't have any thyroid issues and he's had the same predisposition that I have had.
Right.
But I think the more that we talk about like how our thoughts change the way we feel, like I know even when I get sick, like with a cold or something, I'm like, okay, I'll get over it. I'll be fine. Like I just kind of, and I do get over it. I get over it really fast. So it kind of makes me think that the more positive you think about it, the better the outcome. And I remember in school, we talked about some nurses study from I don't even know how long ago, and they were evaluating like the attitudes of different patients, and the attitudes that thought they would get well got well. The ones that never thought they would get well didn't get well.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge testament to how much your thoughts really change the outcome of your healing and how you present yourself. So, um,
Yeah.
and I love hearing you talk about it because you sound so passionate about it. And you obviously care so much.
Thank you.
Do you have your own experience dealing with kind of root cause healing and any kind of like disappointing experiences like within yourself?
Yeah, I
How
definitely
about
do. And I have, gosh, I have so many stories, but for me, where it all started was, and a lot of people now like wouldn't believe that the person you're seeing sitting here talking to you was once hours away from death. And I think it's really important to me. This work I do is not just a business, it's not just anything like that to me. It's something so much bigger than that. And I really feel that I'm here to serve. And this is just the very specific way in which I'm here to serve. And the reason that I know that for sure is that 16 years ago, and actually just about a week ago, was the anniversary of when this all started. But 16 years ago, I had a near death experience because I went into the hospital with kidney stones, and a surgeon told me that he was going to blast my stones and that within 72 hours I'd be walking out of the hospital feeling like $1 million. except that what actually happened was that 72 hours later, and then a few days after that, and then a few days after that, I was still in the hospital, and the reason was because he actually poked a bunch of holes inside of me, left me bleeding internally, and didn't tell me about it.
Oh, wow.
And so as a result, I went into septic shock, and the surgeon that actually saved my life told my family and I that it was a 1 in a million chance that I was actually going to live. And so I said goodbye to my family and never thought that I'd be able to sit here doing this interview with you today. So, um,
And
it
it's
is through
clearly
divine
missing.
intervention that I
Mm-hmm.
survived. And I knew when I woke up in recovery and still the worst pain in my life that I still had a fight ahead of me, and I was told that, and it was made clear to me. But I knew more than that, above all of that, that I only survived because I had a purpose to finish fulfilling. And it's this work. It's to do things differently. It's to make sure that people who don't want to be trapped on the hamster wheel, who don't want to stay trapped inside that system, who actually want a pathway to heal, have one provided for them. And honestly, after that, I had 6 months ahead of me where I had multiple surgeries to try to repair the permanent damage that had been done to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was honestly only the beginning of my fight, because after that, I battled so many different physical, mental, and emotional chronic illnesses for over a decade. And I don't mind being very transparent about that. So, we're talking hormonal imbalances, inflammation, every digestive issue you could possibly think of. I was diagnosed with IBS, chronic constipation, slow colonic transit, SIBO, candida, and you name it.
Goodness.
I had the diagnosis, acne, migraines daily, lots of depression and anxiety and PTSD types of symptoms. And
Mm-hmm.
I bounced from doctor to doctor, specialist to specialist for a decade. And after seeing over a dozen specialists, if I had to hear, you're just going to have to manage it one more time, I was going to lose my mind again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was tired of being managed on medications. They made me feel horrible. They made me feel like not me. And I felt like at that point, traditional healthcare had officially failed me. I felt like a patchwork quilt broken into pieces with no hope of
Mm-hmm.
being put back together again. And all I wanted was to heal and be healthy. So I became the missing link because I had no other choice. And I became the practitioner who puts the broken pieces of the quilt back together again and creates pathways to heal. And I started with healing myself first from the
Mm-hmm.
inside out. And I went from being exhausted and controlled 100% by my health issues to thriving and living this life that's powerful, healthy, and free. And I learned not just because of my professional expertise, I learned by personal experience. So I have
Mm-hmm.
been in my clients' shoes. I know what it feels like to just
Mm-hmm.
want to feel good, to just want to feel your best, to know that
Mm-hmm.
you have all these dreams for your life, that you want something so much more for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But to know that the foundation of all of that is your health, and you have to get that right first. You really do. I think so many of us, especially women business owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
We feel like we have to do it all, you know, and
Definitely.
often what gets put on the back burner is our health, right? We say, oh, I don't have enough time. I have to put this in front of that. And everything
Mm-hmm.
else gets stacked on the plate on top of a broken foundation. And
Right.
so I really think that the best thing any single one of us can do is do our own work first. Because how are you going to serve anybody or anything else if you can't serve yourself?
Right.
And so I learned that the hard way. And since then, I've been able to help countless women solve the same problem in my private
Mm-hmm.
practice. And it's my greatest honor.
Mm-hmm. God, that's a really heartfelt story because I know there are probably women that are watching today that have experienced similar things. I have, I also experienced stuff when I realized I was working a job in New York City where it was just nonstop. It was stress, 18-hour days. And And I was exhausted all the time. I didn't know what was going on. Hair was falling out. I
Oh,
was like TMJ, like all the things. And I ended up moving back home. And I went because I was like, I feel awful. I can't even function in my job day to day. So I came back home and got like a job that was more like 8 to 5 kind of thing,
mhm.
hoping that I could kind of navigate it. And I went to several doctors and they all basically told me the same thing, like, here's a pill. And if you don't feel fine, then we'll just increase the medication. And one doctor even told me over the phone one day, he's like, well, I don't know what's wrong with you because you're a mystery.
I
And
heard
I was
that
like,
too. Oh,
and
I
I
was
was
told
like,
that too.
and I just said, okay, well, you're fired.
And isn't
So,
that the shame that we should ever be made to feel like that inside of
right.
any professional's office?
Mhm.
And that's something I just want to share, you have every right to feel completely in control and
Mhm.
powerful when you're with any practitioner. And if somebody can't talk to you or answer your questions easily and confidently, you need to walk in the,
Mhm.
not run, not walk in the other direction, because that is
Right.
not right. Like that, like your story, like mine, I have heard, I'm sure people listening can relate. I've heard women in my practice tell me things like, well, my doctor said there's nothing really wrong with me. It's just mom brain. I mean,
Mm-mm.
is that the most ridiculous thing you have ever heard?
Well,
But
and it's
imagine how people
condescending.
feel. It is, it's
Yeah,
condescending.
condescending. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong. A practitioner should be able to say, you know what, we've done the tests. I'm not seeing, from my perspective, why you're feeling this way. I think it's best that we move you in X, Y, and Z direction. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Yeah, that's
And
terrible. But here we are in
right.
this place where we're having this conversation because it's common instead of the rare
Right.
scenario. It's
And
what people are commonly experiencing every day.
it really is. And it's a real shame because it keeps people in the thought that they're never going to be able to heal.
It makes them feel
And
hopeless.
that's not true. That's why I'm really so glad that you're here today, because you can really talk to people and encourage them that there is a way to heal. And
There's always a way.
I just think that puts like the empowerment on you and understanding your body so that way you can get to that point. So when people have decided, they're like, I'm done feeling miserable and I want to heal,
Yeah.
what are kind of the things that they need to start doing to take control of their health and really start to learn how to thrive?
I think that's so important to talk about, right? Because it's not all it's nice to tell the stories and explain what this stuff is, but I think it's so important to have people be able to know what to do if they're ready to take action.
Mhm.
So I recommend a couple of steps, to be honest. First, what's really important is to decide that you're ready to take personal responsibility for your health and well-being, because here's the thing. Nobody other than you has the
Mhm.
power to help you heal.
So true.
Nobody other than you can create the optimal health you want, and nobody other than you can achieve any health goal for you other than you. Nobody else, not a health coach, not a traditional doctor, not a naturopath, not me. We're here to guide you, but you
Mhm.
have to be ready to take personal responsibility and take that action. If you want to just think about it some more and dwell in that place, that's okay, but recognize
Mhm.
when you are ready. I always tell people that when they come to work with me, like, this is a transformation that you're about to go through. And that means that no one can make this transformation for you other than you. I
Mhm.
can't carry you up the mountain. You're going to have to put in the work. So you have to be ready to do the work. And it does, just full disclosure, getting to where you want to be is going to take some work. Doesn't, but
Mhm.
it's not, but everything is possible. So, what I'd encourage you to do too is work from the place that everything you want is 100% possible 100% of the time.
Mhm.
And second, find yourself a healthcare professional who can identify your root causes, physical and non physical. and guide you to transform from the inside out to achieve your health goals. You're not meant to do this alone on an island. You're not meant
Mhm.
to figure this all out on your own. And you deserve to work with someone who knows how to serve you in this way. And to be honest, it's very important to be working with someone who can help you with the physical root causes, who can tell you how to eat all the right healing foods, take all the best herbs and supplements for your unique scenario. That's something that I do. However, you can drink all the green juice in the world, and it's not going to fix the stuff going on inside, those
Mhm.
barriers that maybe you don't even realize you have, that have been part of the reason that you're stuck in a plateau or in a cycle of feeling unwell. So, someone who can help you with both sides of the healing equation is so important. And you, again, you deserve it. You deserve to
Mhm.
work with someone who knows how to serve you in this way. And third, I would say, be willing to do the work. Back to kind of what I said at the beginning, be willing to do the work and be open to doing the work to transform from the inside
Mhm.
out, which is going to require, trust me, I've been there. And I believe that healing is a journey. I don't believe it's a destination that we end up ever finishing. I feel like it's layers of an onion. And for me, when I achieved optimal health and well being for me, then I set new goals for myself, and I'm still constantly transforming. So trust me when I say, like, I'm not sitting here not knowing what I'm talking about, or I walk the walk and I talk the talk, and I definitely practice what I preach. And it's important to be willing to not just do the work to transform from the inside out, but to be willing, this is going to require you to find your blind spots and to get clear on who and how you need to be to get the
Mhm.
outcomes you want. Like Einstein said, we can't solve a problem at the same level at which it was created. So it's unlikely that the way you've been being is the same way that's going to get you out of the situation you're in.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually a
Right.
great thing to realize and recognize that you're ready to shift out of that and into something different. And finally, if you do the work, anything is possible for you. And I really mean anything.
Yeah. I think that should be a huge encouragement because a lot of people think that they can just keep going and they're never going to see a
Yeah.
result. But once you start believing that result is going to happen, it will happen. It may not happen the way that you thought it was going to happen or anything like that, but
Yeah. I'm so glad you
it
said
will
that in
happen.
that
Yeah.
way because it's
Mhm.
true. And
Mhm.
sometimes, like you and I know, the journey can feel like it's 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. But you know what? As long as you're putting in the work, it's
Yes.
happening in just the way it's meant to, not necessarily the way we expect it to.
So when you talk about do the work, what are some things that people can expect like of themselves as they're going through the transformative process? Because I know a lot of people are like, well, what do you mean by doing the work? Like what work? Like I'm checking off this checklist. I'm doing the work.
Wow, that is such a good question. Well, like I said, it's not just about eating healing foods, using herbs and supplements that will help you create optimal health, because those things are going to be part of what's important to do. So I'm not saying don't do those things. If you were working with me, I would definitely be having you do those things. But like I always tell my clients, you have to be doing the physical part of the work and the non-physical part of the work. And so what's the non-physical part of the work? I feel like is what
Mm.
is the better is like what you're getting at,
Yep.
because
Hmm.
doing the work, like, well, we all know how to like make sure I did this and ate this and had that and didn't eat that, and everyone knows
Right.
how to do that. And you could actually use a checklist for that, and a lot of us do. But
Hmm.
what's the other part of the work? Well, like I was saying, like so many people try to change their habits, but eventually they fall back into their old patterns. And why is that? That's because of your identity, who you are at a core level. That's what's, like I said earlier, driving your behaviors and habits. So if you stay aligned with that same identity that got you into this place where you're stuck or in a plateau, that is not the same person who's going to get you out of this place. And because your thoughts are the fastest form of energy, and who you think you are, how you think, the stories you tell yourself, it all has everything to do with your health and ability to make change that actually lasts. So, if you don't do the inner work to heal and transform, the truth is you're going to most likely stay stuck in some capacity. So, that means starting to look at things like your limitations. I was just talking about this with a client earlier this morning. There's this quote that I love. It's how you do something is how you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, how you do something is how you do everything. And that's actually really true. So, think about that when somebody says, like a practitioner like me would say to you, like, well, what do you think is your biggest limitation? Or these would be questions I would encourage any of you to start asking yourself. What do you think your biggest limitation is? Is it that I don't have enough time? I don't have enough money? I have X, Y, and Z obligations that I need to fulfill instead of this. Is it the fear of being judged? Is it the fear of not being good enough? That's, two of humans' greatest fears are not being enough and of abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you afraid of, do you think you're just not enough to do this work? So, I would encourage you to really start to, and if you were my client, I'd say the same thing. Really think about and of all of those things, what is your biggest limitation? Because the truth is, if you're saying something to yourself like, well, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, what you're doing, I'll share, this is helping you discover one of your own blind spots right here. If you tell yourself these stories, first of all, it's a story that you tell yourself, and everything you tell yourself is something that you made up in your head. And you're also working from your current identity, which is someone that thinks they don't have enough time. And what that means is that you're actually working from your circumstances. And when we work from our circumstances, we actually repeat the same circumstances over and over and over again. So what you're doing is actually helping yourself stay in that plateau or stay stuck where you are. So I would encourage you to think about that. And then to think about not only what are your biggest limitations, but what's the one habit you have? It doesn't have to be a habit that has to do with eating. What's the one habit you have that is the biggest barrier for you? What's the way that you think is the biggest way that you waste your time every day? These are all things that you can change. And a lot of times, what we're doing is even answering those questions from the identity we have now, which is the person who maybe doesn't feel like she's enough, or the person who doesn't feel like she has enough time to dedicate to this, to creating the foundation of her whole life, which is her health and well-being. And our past really tends to keep us trapped, you know. So a lot of times it also stems from things that were honestly ingrained and indoctrinated in us when we were kids, which was beyond our control, right? Our parents all love us. They were all doing the best they could. They still are, but they impressed upon us their ways of being, and we absorbed that like little sponges from the age of 0 all the way up to the age of 8. And then at that point, we've been shown how to be, right? Our parents show us how to be. So do the other grown-ups and influential people in our lives during that age. So by observing them, we learned certain ways of being. And maybe now as an adult, wherever you're in, whatever place you're in, you're feeling like, maybe you can start to recognize that, oh, wait a second. I don't just need to be this way. I was shown how to be this way. And it doesn't have to be the way that I'm going to stay, because you can quite literally redefine your entire life, but that's a choice that you have to actively make. And this is where a lot of, like, when I say do the work, you have to be willing to put in the work required to change those things about yourself. So find your limitations, find the barriers that are standing in your way, and understand where they came from so that you can understand, okay, I get it now. This isn't the way I want to be. I don't want to be someone that doubts themselves all the time. I don't want to feel like I'm not good enough. I don't want to feel like I don't have enough time. I want this to be my priority. I want to feel powerful, healthy, and strong. I want to feel confident. And then you have to think about if I could give you a little roadmap and some like homework, if you wanted to like do something to implement after you listen to this today, I would sit down and I would write down number one outcome that you want, which I hope is related to your health, right? So I want to look and feel my best, or I want to create optimal health for myself. And then number two, what are three behaviors that you need to have to be able to achieve that goal? And then number three, what are three skills? Just three, right? We could, if we were working together, we could go into infinity and create huge lists, but just pick three. What are three skills or expertise that you need to have to be able to do those three behaviors that you know you need to have to get the outcome that you want? And then after that, number four, what are three beliefs? What are three beliefs you need to have to do those, to acquire those skills, to do those behaviors, to get that outcome? And maybe that's the belief that I can create anything I desire, that I am beautiful and healthy and well. What are the beliefs that you need to have? They may not align with the beliefs that you have now. So recognize as you're thinking about these things, even as you're listening to us talk back and forth, that you might hear that, that ego voice in your head that's like, who do you think you are, girl? You can't have that. Um, who do you think what? No, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. You can tell her to just step aside. Because she's trying to keep you in your comfort zone. And it's only outside of your comfort zone that you're going to grow. But back to the homework, number five, the last step would be, what's your identity? What identity do you need to have to be that confident, to be the person that knows she's confident, healthy, and well? That she's good at more than good enough just the way she is, that she's capable of achieving anything. There are some very specific characteristics, right, that person would have. So probably things like committed, right, responsible, because you can only have what you can only have what you take responsibility for having, right? So you have to take responsibility for your health and well-being. Maybe it's devoted, maybe it's relentless, so these are some qualities. Maybe it's joyful. So what are qualities, or what are three characteristics that person would have? And that right there, that framework I just shared, is honestly some of the work that I do with my clients. And I would tell you is some of the most important things you can start to think about so that you can put that inner work in and actually help yourself heal and change from the inside out.
Yeah, that's actually a really awesome process. It's actually a similar process that one of my business coaches puts us through at the very beginning, because it's like you can literally apply this to any
I was
area
just going to
of your
say
life.
that you
And
totally can.
and I think once you start recognizing all the limitations that you're putting on yourself, because a lot of times people are successful in like one area of their life, and
Yeah,
they're like, well, why am I successful in this area and not in these other areas? And that's when you need to start looking at those other areas and being like, well, what's making you successful there? And
100%.
then taking those points to really heal yourself, so that way you can be the person that you really truly desire to be. So
Absolutely. I love that you asked that question.
yeah.
I like just let it all flow out of my mouth. So
Yes, I like to deviate sometimes.
I
And
love that. And it's so important. I hope that some people out there really take this to heart and start to
Mhm,
give it a try. Like, grab a journal, like, work through
mhm.
this stuff. And, like, we're both saying, it will work for you. And the beautiful thing about it is you can apply this to any area of your life.
You really can.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is so beautiful to think about, and empowering too, because when
it
you
is.
realize that your life is in your control and not in someone else's control, it really just can really change the trajectory of like every aspect of your life.
Yeah, we're always the ones in control. And I feel like if that's like one thing I can help people rediscover on their journey, that would be it, is like, is just how powerful and capable you are. You actually, the possibilities for you are quite literally limitless, and you can create whatever you want. You are powerful. beyond your imagination to be able to
Yeah.
do that. And I think we just live inside of systems and structures, especially things like our Western healthcare system, that train us to think that we're powerless and
Mhm.
helpless. And it's quite the opposite.
Right. And that's so freeing that you once you step into that and realizing that you are in control, because having it's so hard to have someone else like control you, because then you just feel
It
trapped all the
is.
time. And
And I think in one way or another, we all know what that feels like, you know.
mhm, totally, we definitely do. Well,
Yeah.
this has been amazing. I hope everyone's gotten a lot of value out of it.
Me too.
And I really encourage you to do that homework and really dig deep and figure out like your root causes for just your healing so you can start to really truly heal. So
Yeah.
I love that. Well, can you tell us a little bit about where we can find you, your
Sure.
freebie, and your website, any outlets where we can find you and
Absolutely.
get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And I'm honored to. And just like you said, everyone, just remember you can do whatever you want. You can create whatever outcomes you want. I've seen
Mhm,
people transform in my practice from chronically ill, abused, and depressed to vibrantly healthy, confident, and peaceful people.
mhm.
And even go from extremes like 6 massive strokes to what people would call a miracle. So
Wow.
all you have to do is choose and remember how
Mhm.
powerful you are. But with
Yeah,
that being
love that.
said, it's just been an honor to be here and connect with you all very genuinely. And one of the best ways to connect with me and my work is to go to sherlockholmesofhealth.com. If you go there, that will actually also connect you with an incredible free resource I have that actually really aligns with a lot of what we were talking about today. It will finally help you get off the health hamster wheel if you've been stuck on it. It's designed to help you with confidence be able to navigate finding the right and best healthcare practitioner, whether it's anywhere on the spectrum, from a doctor or specialist in the mainstream all the way to the other end of the spectrum and looking for someone more like a holistic health coach.
Mhm.
But it's designed to help you find and interview people with confidence so that you know that you're the one who's in charge. You know how to find somebody who's going to keep you feeling powerful, not helpless.
Yeah, that sounds like a really valuable resource. So you
It's really
guys,
awesome. So that's a great way to find
mhm.
me. You can, of course, always go to my website, which is just drelizabethrodgers.com. And that's another way to stay connected with me, too.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And
Thank you
y'all,
so much.
you're so welcome. And thank you guys, everybody. And y'all have a great day.